dark. Probably would have been a good idea to have like one light on.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a news roundup video. So today I'm talking about two particular subjects that are very, very brand new, talking about the Shazam suit and our first look at a possible and most likely brand new Michael Keaton Batman suit for the upcoming The Flash movie, but also because I was busy over the weekend for when the Sandman news came out, because we got a lot more castings for Death, Desire, even Constantine, but maybe not the way you would expect, and there's a little bit of drama and controversy surrounding this, to the point of where Neil Gaiman has had to get involved himself. So, long story short, big news roundup video. I've got a lot to say about each subject, so I'm going to timestamp this. If you want to go to the Sandman stuff, that'll be in the top pin comment or the video description. If you want to skip to the Shazam suit stuff, because we've got a great new look at the suit, skip to that. But today we're going to start with the most recent, which was going to be the Shazam stuff before I was filming this very recording right now. But not too long before I hit the record button, we got our first tease from Andy Muschietti, the director of the Flash movie, the Flashpoint movie, of which, as you all should know by now, Michael Keaton is reprising his role as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. We've known this for a long time now. We even had some mock-up concept photos of the new Flash suit and the Batman 89 type suit in those concept photos that you're probably seeing on screen right now. But this here seems to be our first look at something kind of different, all while very, very familiar to some of you. So my first impressions when I see this is like, oh, this is kind of what I was hoping for, and it is very minimalistic, but you know me, I've got some things to say about it, and I would love to know your thoughts, of course, down in the comments. But this is what I meant by what I wanted, is that if they were going to do the 89 suit like what we saw at DC Fandom, it looked like, you know, we saw a very early concept of the new Flash suit and whatnot, but the 89 suit kind of looks similar, and I don't have a problem with that, don't get me wrong, it's iconic, but I wanted, obviously, an older Michael Keaton to have a more modernized version of his suit. So I don't mind the yellow symbol staying, but, you know, I feel like the cowl needs to be improved, this, that, and the other. And obviously, when it comes to an older Batman, people are thinking, if it is true that the rumors are, you know, whispering about perhaps him having a Nick Fury type role moving from here on out, depending how Flashpoint ends, whether Ben Affleck says goodbye in that movie or not. I'm going to try and not tangent, but, you know, that might bring out a Kingdom Come-esque inspired suit. Now, what do I see when I first see this? This doesn't scream Kingdom Come. However, the new metallic kind of matty kind of metal there outside of the symbol is reminiscent to me of a possible Kingdom Come sort of color for the armored bat design. It's definitely not the 89 suit. This is definitely kind of a revision, as I kind of said you would expect with an older Michael Keaton Batman. So, you know, rumors are that it could be Kingdom Come inspired. This does seem to be the case, obviously while maintaining the bat symbol in the middle. Now, interestingly, it looks like there's a slug that's on there. Only joking, but this is probably meant to be blood. I mean, you could say Batman spilled some jam out of his jam sandwich that Alfred just freshly made for him in the Batcave, but this is probably blood. And now, it's quite an interesting touch, because that could be a clue. Nothing that Andy Muschietti here, that he's teasing, is what I'm trying to say is it is deliberate. So this is reminiscent of the yellow and the button, the Watchman, with the blood on it. You know what I'm trying to say, so yeah, there's not too much more for me to say, because obviously this is a massive close-up to the center of the new suit that we're probably going to see obviously that we're going to see Michael Keaton's Batman sport. I can tell it isn't the typical suit we're used to seeing Michael Keaton wear. It maintains his symbol, but I'm hoping that it's got some Kingdom Come vibes to it, which, you know, I'm thinking maybe the grade of color that the metal is kind of giving off here could be a clue to that, all while obviously having the massive black Kingdom Come bat symbol in it. It's like, I'm thinking maybe it'll be like that, but maintaining the Batman 89 Michael Keaton stamp on it with his yellow bat symbol. So I'd love to know what you guys thought of that. I don't want to waste too much more time. What did you think of the slug coming out of the blood there? Obviously, that's a massive Easter egg to point out that Barry and Batman are going to be combating a massive slug in the movie. But really, no, it kind of makes us excited in a very low-key way. But guys, speaking of suits, we have got our first look at Zachary Levi's, or should I say Shazam's, suit in the upgraded suit he's going to have in Shazam Fury of the Gods. Now, what were my first impressions of this? I'm just going to pull up probably an image from an article, but also something that Zachary Levi retweeted because people are already on the fan artwork. And this particular artist, Missouri AU on Twitter, I definitely recommend following because he makes some great concepts and edits of the Batman that I've used in video thumbnails and videos. So massive shout out to him. But before we go on to the cape look, and obviously of what I've already teased throughout this video, we've had an actual suit kind of cinematic real tease, if you know what I mean. It was kind of frustrating. It's like we get some detail in there, and I trust that I've lightened it up in this video, but the lights were off. It's like, oh, come on, man. Like, I guess we've got these set photos, but you could have shown us in that trailer like a really good look at this suit. Obviously, the joke at the end from Billy Batson himself was like, why are the lights off? We could have used the light on, right? But come on, yeah, why can't we have it on to have a proper clean look? Albeit that the stuff that you're seeing pop up in articles just like this are very clean. They're very detailed. Now, what were my first thoughts? What were my first thoughts on this suit? I have to admit it. At first, I was like, oh, I don't know. Do I prefer the first one? But the more I looked at it, the more I really liked it. It was actually a fascinating journey for me. Just because, you know, I don't think that the first Shazam suit was all this and that. I thought it was decent. I know some people take the piss out of it, saying it's too muscle paddy or there's not enough texture in it. It kind of looks like a Stretch Armstrong kind of thing. I get what people mean there. And there was definitely a layer of muscle to it, whereas on this suit you can see that obviously a lot of superhero suits, even Henry Cavill suits, the abs that you see there aren't actually his abs tensed, piercing through the suit. Now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson won't have muscle padding, and what I'm trying to get to the bottom of here is this has probably got some subtle parts to it, but it's very much so reduced. You can see how it's like he's wearing a very skin-tight version compared to that of the first films where, you know, where we had that Shazam lightning bolt there with the light-up aspect to it pop out. It was quite thick. There was quite a depression leading into his skin, if you know what I mean. Now, what I really like about this suit is it kind of modernizes it up to what is reflected to that of the other DCEU suits. So for example, you can tell that Henry Cavill's suits have these like nice pattern weave throughout it, and now Billy Batson and Shazam himself here has got a very similar getup. Now the lightning bolt here, this really surprised me just because when you look at it very closely and you get better looks at the detail in the little trailer that I guess I'm showing on screen right now, a bit edited with the color up a bit and the contrast up a bit, but he says that it will light up, but my first impression was that, oh, maybe they're not going to do that this time, because it really looks like with the gold, it wasn't going to. And as I said, when you look into it even more, you can see the little engravings of the lightning bolt within, and it just didn't look like this was designed to light up so much. But David Sandberg replied to a comment saying it will, because people are like, why doesn't it glow? And he just replied saying it will. So I just don't know if it needs to. I know some people like that, and obviously it was cool on the first suit, but I'm not getting conspiracy theory here, but I'm just wondering, it makes me think, was it meant to light up and now he's saying it will? I'm not really going there. It just looks to me like it would be fine being that gold without being lit up. But apparently, despite what we're seeing here being cool enough in of itself, in my opinion, it will still light up. I'm guessing maybe it won't be in the same fashion though. So while here the gold and the yellow aspects of it are so bright, I feel like instead of actually making it this kind of liquidy lava fluidy magic thing that was in the first Shazam suit, it should just have almost that kind of, imagine like God being in the show and you have that like power imbued effect around him, a little bit of a glow. For example, like Gandalf the White in Lord of the Rings, they added a little bit of a hue to the white of him and the white of his clothes. It's like he was holy. I feel like that would be best served, that little effect coming from the Shazam symbol, like it's got this enchanted effect on it, rather than it being a pure, as I said, liquidated glow to it. Because I feel like I really dig the designs and the engravings they have on the emblem of the actual suit there, to the point where you don't need to make it really shine to the point where we blind. I would love to know your thoughts on that, of course. Other than that, my favorite parts of the suit are the gauntlets. They are so clean. It's funny, actually. The suit reminds me a lot of what LJ Supersuits did of the Wonder Girl suit, just because, you know, it's a very similar shade of red. The pattern is almost similar in certain aspects. I love the detail going up the thighs there to his belt. The belt is slightly changed as well. Right here, he's not wearing a cape. However, in the trailer little thing that we got teased with, it turns out he has a split cape, because you can tell he's got the cape on, but in between his legs, you can't see that the cape connects. So that tells us that the cape is going to be split, which I think is going to be really, really fitting for this. I know that the fan art that Zachary Levi shared here saying, you know, our fans are already doing this. This is great. It shows that the first cape, the practical cape that they actually had on the first film suit, has been applied to this new one. But imagine this with it split, or maybe you don't have to. Hopefully I'm showing you the brighter version of the little teaser trailer almost we got for this suit reveal. So yeah, split cape. I think that's going to look really cool. As I think I've already said, and I agree with a lot of people are saying, this could clue us into what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam suit will look like. I think it will. I think that's a good insight, just because it doesn't mean it's going to be copy and paste, but you can expect the texturization of the different aspects of the suit. Like another thing, where his pecs are, if you will, where the emblem is. I love how it has those woven bits to the shoulder. There's a lot of details that at first glance you don't take in all at once. But yeah, it's just going to be funny because whereas we got The Rock, he says he's not going to have any muscle padding, but this, as I said, is already skin tight in of itself on Zachary Levi compared to that of his first Shazam suit, to the point where, yeah, Dwayne, no, with his muscles literally almost bursting as if they're going to have an aneurysm almost. Yeah, with a similar suit like this put on him, he will be almost ripping through it, so he won't need that. So it gives me really cool vibes for the future, and I'm really looking forward to it personally. I think it looks great. But moving on to number 3, I was going to make this its own video, but I just thought since I'm so late, I wanted to just pack it into here, because I covered a Sandman on this channel, and news has kind of been scarce in ways, but I've done videos when it required it, where we saw the castings for Dream, Lucifer, which was Gwendolyn Christie, and there was quite a bit of backlash on that video. Not necessarily, not about me, but just people being receptive to the casting, the changes. And now with this new casting, it's blown up even more, which this is going to be interesting to talk about, because it's controversial at the end of the day. It really is. And it's going to be interesting to see what you think, I suppose, after today's discussion. So here we have a huge update with very, very interesting casting choices. Such as, you know, getting and I'm trust you're seeing the image on screen, getting subtle changes. Well, I don't know if this is so subtle for some people. A lot of people are screaming about this, actually. Such as Jenna Coleman is Johanna Constantine here. And for example, if you didn't know already, she will basically be fulfilling John Constantine's role that he had in the Sandman graphic novel. Now, this is interesting because you know, you could say it's a gender bend, but technically it isn't, because Johanna Constantine is Constantine's like great whatever grandmother. So because they're using a different character who is a different sex, if you will, to fulfill John Constantine's role in the story, it's like, yeah, I suppose that is gender bending it, but at the same time, it's a whole separate character to John Constantine. But at the end of the day, even if it's a separate character to John Constantine, and it's the great whatever grandmother, and you're still using her to do the same stuff that John did in the graphic novel and the story, it's basically they're gender bending it in a way. But it's also interesting at the same time, because you can still say, yeah, but it's still not John or a female John, even though the principle is the exact same. But one thing that's intriguing about Jenna Coleman's aspect there is, and the fact that it's not technically straight up a female John Constantine, even though she will be in every single way, is why was she ripped out of time? Like, because the Sandman's set in present day. So there will be flashbacks, of course, because we have Dream imprisoned for some time. But you could argue, and it's going to be intriguing to see, like, why doesn't John Constantine, because he is out there in present day, you have to imagine, why isn't he fulfilling his role in the comic book? I mean, I know why. They fancy Jenna Coleman as the character, and they thought, oh yeah, we can use the great grandmother of John Constantine to do that. But she's going to have to be pulled out of time, I suppose, to be put into present day when John could be serving that role. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is adapted, if you know what I mean. Now, what are my thoughts of it? I don't mind. Honestly, I don't mind. Like, don't get me wrong. I would have liked to have seen like an actual straight up John Constantine, but we're still probably going to get that through other media. Like there's, whispers through the grapevine of, obviously J.J. Abrams and what he has planned with his Justice League Dark thing going on and how he might get John Constantine now. I do think that the character is embargoed to an extent. And, Jenna Coleman is a good actress. I know probably a lot of you recognize her from things like Doctor Who. I don't think it's a massive invasive thing that some people make this out to be. Like, that's the thing, and this is what we need to move on to now, because we also have the casting of Death, which many, many, many people were looking forward to, and Desire. Before I get onto that, by the way, I am absolutely in love with David Thewlis as John Dee. I haven't seen him in too much, but I was in love with his Lupin in the Harry Potter series, and I can seriously imagine him being this character, and I'm so happy. Like, this cast is actually pretty stacked. I mean, we have Stephen Fry down there as Gilbert. Now, but let's get onto the stuff that people are screaming about. Look, people can have their opinions, but it's when this vocal minority, I feel like, and I'm not speaking on the fact of everyone, because some people have reasons or whatever, right? But there's a certain minority of fans, you could say, or are they fans? This is the thing, right? To the point of where Neil Gaiman has even come out himself now to defend what he's doing, because they're making a bit of an idiot out of themselves. So let me get into this. There was big backlash to the reactions of Kirby Howell Baptiste as Death, who is black in this iteration, and then Mason Alexander Park as Desire, who is non-binary. Now, this is where a lot of fans came in shouting, and it could be an angry minority, as I said, but it is interesting because when I made my Everything We Know About Sandman So Far video, I believe, or maybe I made a separate video about the first castings that we got, people were just saying, woke this, woke BS, woke this, woke that. But quite often with things like this, the people who are screaming about it becomes a bit transparent. For example, crying woke this, woke that, woke this, woke that about Desire, it makes you look really silly when literally the character of Desire is very obviously depicted as non-binary in the Sandman graphic novel story. I mean, literally, how much of a noob do you want to make yourself out to be, where it's like, Desire, they, them? Why have you cast a non-binary person as that? What? The Desire is a non-binary, literally. So I don't even want to get into that because I feel like that is very case in point. I try and understand the camps of both sides in any situation, even ones that I don't disagree with. People feeling like gender bending or whatever may be unnecessary and things like that in some things. But, when it comes to stuff like this, it shows the true colors sometimes of fans, or certain fans, let me say, because, as I said, it makes you look really silly when you're screaming and calling Neil Gaiman a woke sellout for his story that's being adapted and his decisions, because he's very involved in this. And you have Desire in the comics, who is non-binary, and this is an actual very, very accurate casting. And in a similar fashion, let's move on to Death, who is, usually depicted very, very pale and like ghostly frail, if you will, to mimic the ghastly death aspect of her. It makes sense, right? And now, obviously, Kirby Howell Baptiste, I really hope I pronounced that correctly, is obviously black, so Death is being portrayed by a black actress, and she's going to be black in the show. But in a similar fashion, albeit here that Death is mainly depicted as very pale in the graphic novel, with the endless like dream, desire, despair, death. For those who have read the series, they can appear to people differently. So, like, even though people might get outraged because you can show a picture of Death being very pale and then being like, oh, okay, black casting here, it is still very much so woven into the lore. And the same thing can be said for Gwendolyn Christie, who was cast as Lucifer, and I'll get onto that example in a minute. So back to Death as to why being cast as black isn't like, oh, woke this, woke, what's wokey, wokey, woke? So for example, when making sure, I had my, all my arrows in a straight line, so to speak, she has appeared even as a Chinese girl before in the story. Or Morpheus Dream himself of the Endless, the main character of the Sandman has appeared as black before. So do you see what I mean? But let's move on to another example. Gwendolyn Christie, her casting as Lucifer works because, so in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, our angels aren't really bound by the human perspective of sex, I suppose. Even though, to be fair to some people here, Lucy, or Lucifer if you will, I'm just so used to saying Lucy now, in the graphic novel panels and whatnot, obviously there were more takes of him being addressed with male pronouns and whatnot, but there are also other debatable qualities to the character. Or either way though, Lucy being played by Gwendolyn, of whom is a woman, obviously, isn't a big deal, especially when it comes to the lore and the world, the angelic beings of Neil Gaiman's, universe. And especially, it's even more so relevant. It's really much more relevant when it comes to the Endless. Those beings, yeah, again, just in case you're getting a bit confused, are the bigger characters such as Dream, Death, Desire, and all of that. And now it's got to the point of where Neil Gaiman, as I kind of said, and I wanted to read this out, is being tweeted out left, right, and center and these fans are, I guess, exposing themselves in a way, as I said, because it's funny when they scream about Desire and they couldn't be more incorrect about it. So this person here says, why sell out? Just stand by your work, or do you lack the intestinal fortitude? It irks me more that you just don't even give a effect. And Neil Gaiman says, I give all the fucks about the work. I spent 30 years successfully battling bad movies of Sandman. I give zero fucks about the people who don't understand or haven't read Sandman whining about a non-binary desire or death isn't white enough. Watch the show, make up your minds. And to be honest with you guys, I agree with Neil Gaiman. As Neil Gaiman said, watch the show. And I've look, maybe this is too optimistic or whatever, but I have a really good feeling about Netflix as a Sandman. I've been covering it for a while. I've been keeping my ear to the ground, and I have a lot of hope for this show. I think it's going to be, it's really, peddling its way up to be presented on the plate as a very premium show that I think is going to bring the universe of, Preludes and Nocturnes initially, and just the Sandman in general, to such good fruition. And at the end of the day, guys, I think the cast is exciting. It excites me. I think some people do need to calm down a bit, and as Neil Gaiman said himself, watch the show, then make up your minds. Either way, to me, it just seems like a lot of silly outrage when you take into account that Death canonically morphed themselves to the person they're presented to, if that makes sense. And it kind of shows this transparent mentality amongst a certain crowd who come out with outrage, but then ironically the canon of the show couldn't prove that they couldn't be further from the truth. Do you know what I mean? I think that kind of says it all. And in Neil Gaiman's words, watch the show, then make up your minds. I'm very excited for this. I don't really have too much else to say about the casting, by the way, other than the particular few I mentioned. Everyone else, just being fully transparent here, I don't think I've seen them in too much. I've already spoke about the first bunch of castings in another video, like, Tom Sturridge being Dream, Gwendolyn Christie being Lucifer, and Charles Dance as Roderick Burgess, which I think is a perfect casting. But other than that, guys, I think that more or less wraps up today's video, this kind of news roundup. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it to this part of the video, I'd love for you to comment down in the comments below with whatever you were going to comment to prove that you got this far. Hashtag Batman returns again. And other than that, everyone, like the video if you did enjoy it. I would love your thoughts on absolutely everything. Links to follow me in other places are in the top pinned comment, to my social media, Patreon, and big shout out to all the channel members and patron members appearing on screen. And other than that, I think that is absolutely everything. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, people of the multiverse, in the next video. Goodbye.